Welcome to the Jobs Report podcast by Swob, the job search platform that lets you swipe to success. Each episode, hosts Stephanie and Alexander Florio bring you expert insights on career trends, job hunting, and forging your path in the modern world of work. Your career success starts here, so let's dive in.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jobs Report podcast.
Hello everyone.
Today we're going to be discussing something that's super important when finding your job, and it's sometimes a little awkward, we get it, but we're going to be talking about the power of networking.
So important. It's so important, networking.
Sometimes it is a little bit scary to get out of your comfort zone, talk to other people who you might not know, but it is so valuable, especially when you're looking for more outside of your part-time job. You're looking for your career job and you're looking to expand your network. It is extremely valuable to meet other people and really get that insider information when applying to different jobs.
Well, it's so important too, because what I think a lot of people who are looking to start their careers, what they don't understand or maybe don't realize is that the people that are networking, they already have the leg up. Because if you're going out there and you're stepping outside your comfort zone and you're doing things like networking and trying to build connections and leveraging those connections to meet other people or whatever it is, or just trying to get as much information about how somebody got into a role, it's so critical and it's so important. And I think it's something that a lot of people, like you said, it's intimidating for people to get out there and meet with people. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be a face-to-face interaction. I don't think,
No.
When you think of networking, there's other ways you can network, and that can even be a phone call or something. But I think the best way to start to network and to just kind of build confidence, I would even say leveraging platforms like LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is so important.
Yes. So I'm actually going to share, when I was looking for my after school, when I graduated, I was looking for a role in advertising. I wanted to be in marketing and advertising, and I absolutely loved it. But I actually spent a year looking for a job. And what I decided to do was, in that year, of course I was applying to jobs, looking for a job became a full-time job.
Yep.
But I had to learn to get out of my comfort zone and do things a little bit different. And that's when I started using LinkedIn to my advantage, where I would look at different ad agencies that I wanted to work at, look at people who were in the roles that I wanted to work at, and literally I would reach out through LinkedIn and just said, hey, can we grab a coffee? 20 minutes, had a couple of questions, or even now, especially like Zoom, Google Meets, everybody's used to that now. You could do a virtual coffee and just meet with the person and really just ask questions on how did they get their role, what's it like, asking about company culture, and having that really helps you stand out, because I don't even know how many informational interviews I did. And whenever I would see a position that opened at that agency, I would reach out to the person I had the informational interview with, and I would say, hey, do you mind forwarding my resume to HR, or just to try to make my resume stand out. And the nice thing is, when you have somebody that you already know working in the industry, it helps so much. Well, and your resume goes from the bottom to the top because they referred you.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say, is that the very fact that you've already networked with these people and they already sort of have that rapport with you, well, they're more than, who knows, they might be more willing to help you out this time, or your resume, like you said, might get placed to the top just because you already have that connection. But I think there's also a bit of a misunderstanding or misconception when people think about networking. And listen, I think LinkedIn is a great tool, and it's a great way to, like you said, meet people that have similar job titles that you aspire to, or work in companies that you want to work within. But I think the biggest thing people need to recognize when networking is, yes, it can be a great advantage to you and it can be a great resource when done properly. When we say network, that doesn't mean necessarily to go on LinkedIn and to find somebody who you've never met before, you have no rapport with, no relationship with, and then start asking them for introductions or start asking them to forward your resume or help or get help for a job. And that's definitely not how you do networking. You need to build the connections first. You need to build a rapport, have a relationship. And I think it's okay to reach out. I think it's great, frankly, to reach out to somebody to say, hi there, you're in a position that I aspire to be in. Can I pick your brain 20 minutes over a cup of coffee just to kind of ask some questions? And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that the people that they're reaching out to, they understand. They were at one point in your position as well, where they were the ones who were looking. And I remember even in my own personal experiences, when I graduated, I spent a lot of time doing networking, trying to meet people within the industry and just build up as many meaningful connections as possible. And I remember remember I used to reach out to people all the time, respectfully, asking them for an informational interview where I can go and meet with them for a coffee at a time and place that worked for them. And I remember I got a response one time and somebody was willing to meet with me, and I thought, this is great. And when I asked him why you were willing to take the time to meet with me, which he didn't owe me any favors, he didn't have to, he mentioned that he was in my position at one point, he remembers, he understands, and that who knows, 10 years down the road, he might need a favor from me. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective where, you know, kind of what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And so you never know, but the fact that you're building these meaningful connections, I think that is where the kind of the secret sauce lies in networking.
Exactly. Yeah. And like you said, I wouldn't reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you forward my resume, or can you introduce me to so-and-so? You always want to explain yourself and say why you're reaching out, because like to Alex's point, that person understood and knew what it was like to be a recent grad looking for a job. And 9 out of 10 times, somebody will understand that because they've gone through it as well. And you have to also remember, there are going to be people who just don't have the time to meet with you. And there are going to be people who say no. But I wouldn't focus on all the no's you might get. There could be some people who say yes, and use those people and leverage that network.
It's numbers. I mean, the more you hit up, the more likely you're going to get responses. But again, you can't take it personally, or you can't kind of attack when people might not respond to you, because realistically,
people could be busy.
Yeah,
we get it.
Be busy, or people just, again, you might run into people who aren't willing. But you
got to keep trying.
Exactly, you got to keep trying, and especially even outside of things like LinkedIn, especially here in Toronto, there are so many networking events that happen in person where you can go out, meet people within the industries that you're interested in. And I think that is where a lot of discomfort comes, you know, when you're thinking about networking. It's hard to get out there, and especially for people who are more introverted, who don't necessarily like going out and meeting new people. You know, I think it's one of those things where the more often you do it, you're going to realize it becomes easier. What I also think people don't realize is that you're not the only one there who has maybe social anxieties. There's other people there that feel the exact same way that you do. But I think if you get yourself out there, you meet with people, you go in there with a goal, even if it's your first networking event, and you set a goal that I want to make one meaningful connection today.
I like that, yeah.
That works. You have to think about small victories. And I think if you go and you make one meaningful connection and you're able to grow that connection and foster that connection, and that leads to other connections, well, you're just going to become more and more confident, and those connections are going to happen more and more frequently.
Exactly.
And so I think it's just, you have to really step out your comfort zone. Unfortunately, if you're not doing it, you're going to be setting yourself behind compared to those who are doing it. And I mean, I'll tell you something, my first ever job, so when I graduated from marketing, like I said earlier, I spent a lot of time networking, trying to meet as many people as possible. And when I landed my first job in marketing, it was because I had networked, I knew the people at the agency, and they had reached out to me because there was an opening. And so that just goes to show that there is power to networking. It's so important.
Exactly. It really helps you stand out. And something too that I would recommend is, even if you are going to an in-person event, sometimes, it is intimidating, but maybe having 3 to 5 questions in your back pocket that you can use, because if you just go up to somebody like, hey, what's up? And it's an awkward silence, then that's awkward. So it's nice to kind of be a little bit prepared for sure, even when you're going to the event. There's obviously some common grounds that you guys like the event, you know what the event's about, so maybe go in with some questions around the event. So I would even also suggest, when you are networking, to maybe ask the person who you're networking with and say, hey, do you know anybody else who might be interested in doing an informational interview? Sometimes asking somebody and having that warm introduction from the person you already were networking with is huge. And it takes away kind of that pressure from you, because you're getting an introduction from someone else.
Well, I think failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And if you're going to go, you like that.
Yeah.
But if you go into an event and you're just kind of there hoping people are going to gravitate toward you, that's likely not the case. You do have to come prepared, and you have to go in with some sort of an idea of what you're going to say when networking. You can't just go there and say hi and then just kind of hope that the conversation goes from there. That's not going to happen. But you have to be prepared. And like I said, even if you go in there and you come out with one meaningful connection, that's still a victory. It's small victories. And the more and more that you practice and kind of work on that, the more and more you're going to be able to build connections. So those are just really, really important things that you need to remember when you start to think about networking.
Exactly. And I would say, as you become more comfortable, it's just going to get easier and easier. And if you don't start, somebody else will. So who gives a shit? Put yourself out there and just try. You never know what can happen.
Yeah, I agreed.
Well, we hope these tips are extremely helpful for you. If there's one thing we could say it's get out there and network.
Yep, from personal experience
Yes.
on both sides here.
Yes.
Go and network. It
Go
is
and network.
so important.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the Jobs Report podcast brought to you by Swob.